Welcome to the Worship Leader Hangout podcast. My name's Chad Buckland, and this is
Davin Hutchinson.
That's right. We're so glad to be with you. Today, we're going to be talking about our top 5 most influential worship albums, or albums in general, maybe. I don't know what he has on his list. But we're going to be looking at albums that kind of influenced us to want to be worship leaders, to us in becoming worship leaders, if that makes sense. I know a lot of mine, I was kind of becoming and starting to lead worship when I was in high school, and a lot of my stuff is going to be between like 2002 and 2007. I do have one from 2019, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, man, it's gonna be a good podcast. It may be a little shorter than normal, but this week on the channel we had a new stage design video, and Davin actually brought out a new video talking about thirds. So if you're looking for other stuff to watch other than a long podcast, go check out our videos on the Worship Leader Hangout YouTube channel. And by the way, Davin, we are now on Google Podcast officially.
Oh, really?
And I'm pretty sure it's like actually searchable on Apple now, which is good because for whatever reason it wasn't searchable before. So if we're still having that problem, let us know. But it should be fixed. Cool. Anyway, let's go ahead and go to our, like, I guess, are you doing like a top 5? Going from like least to most, or are you just naming off 5?
Yeah, I think I'm going to name off 5. We'll see what they may end up going in order, like the first influential album that I can remember. It probably may go in that order, but we'll see.
Well, that sounds good. Why don't you go ahead and go in with your, I guess, number 5?
Okay, so I'm going to say it has to be the Bishop Clarence McClendon album. That was called Shout Hallelujah. So do you know who Bishop Clarence McClendon is?
I honestly don't think I've heard his name.
Okay, so this album
I'm learning right now.
This album had Let the Rain of Your Presence, Let the Rain of Your Presence Fall.
I know that song.
And it had All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name. However, it was All Hail the Power of Jesus' Name, the black version. And then it had Shout Hallelujah is the highest praise. Dance the
I know that one.
Okay.
How did I not know his name then?
Because he only came out, as far as I know, with one album, but it was my first introduction that I could remember to like an entire album being a praise and worship gospel album. Like, it's the first one I remember. There are other albums that were influential on me, but in terms of praise and worship, this one takes it. And I'm going to go through some more songs. You probably know them. I call you faithful, Lord, you are faithful. This was on that album. There is a fount that's filled with love, drawn from Emmanuel's fame. Do you know that one?
So is that one took from There Is a Fountain, like the hymn?
Yes, take from There Is a Fountain, the hymn. Exactly. It was the first time I heard like a hymn that had been redone in that way. Then there is This is the hour of visitation. There was that song on there. You know that one?
That one sounds a little familiar. I may have heard it. I mean, if I've heard all those other ones.
Yeah. And then
I probably heard that.
The other 3 songs were, I came to magnify the Lord. I feel like a white guy. Praise his holy name. Lift Jesus higher. I'm probably in the wrong key. Lift Jesus higher. You ever heard that one?
Yeah, I know that one.
Okay,
yeah, our church did that one too.
This album was amazing, and nobody ever talks about it. So this was a very influential album. Clearly, I know all the songs on it. So,
you listen to it a lot.
I listened to it a lot. I don't listen to it as much anymore.
I said, listened,
Yeah. But yeah, very influential album. So what's yours?
My number 5, I'm going to start with a really recent album, or set of albums, really. I'm just going to be honest, because there's not a lot of songs on them. But one group that's just really been wrecking me lately. It's been a very interesting time as far as me and my worship leading, and just a lot of different changes and things. And anyway, so one album that's just been wrecking me has been Maverick City's Volume 1, 2, and 3. So it's technically 3 albums, but when you put it all together, that's just one big album.
You're another Maverick City person.
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
Everybody's been telling me about them, and I can't tell you one song, so I clearly need to get on the train.
Yeah, you need to check them out. I can listen to those albums all day and just worship with that. So that is influential in a way of like, okay, let's keep going. Let's keep doing this thing. As a worship leader, you're not done by any means. You're just getting started. And so I don't know. It keeps me going. But it also sets me in a posture of worship, and puts me in that atmosphere when I need to, just alone with God and that alone time in that secret place. So it's just an incredible album. So if you haven't listened to it, I know you obviously haven't, go check it out. Maverick City. Everything they've been putting out lately has just been incredible. So yeah, check that out. So yeah, that's my number 5. I said number 5 because it's most recent and it really didn't like influence me to become a worship leader, but it definitely has been influencing me to stay a worship leader. That's for sure. It's incredible.
Understood. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call that album one that influenced me to become a worship leader, but it really did begin my appreciation of worship, right? And
right.
So yeah. Let's see. Second album is going to be around, I think, a little bit after that one is going to be Kirk Franklin Rebirth, and this album. I still listen to this album. At least
I remember this album
once every 2 or 3 months. So
really,
yeah,
wow.
Still a very influential album to this day. One of my favorite songs is "Don't Cry." Talking about don't cry because he's risen.
Yeah.
And then he took a very, at the time, and I don't know if, I guess it's still popular, but at the time he took a very old, like, CCM song for that time, which would have been, "Our God is an awesome God, he reigns from heaven above it is." Yeah. Except he took it and he blackified it.
Our God is an awesome God, he reigns from heaven above with wisdom. Yeah. Our God is an awesome God. Yeah. He took it and exactly. Yep. So then this had a bunch of ones like Hosanna, Looking Out for Me, Caught Up to Meet Him. I was listening to this the other day and I was learning some gospel moves from it. And so I'm actually going to show those on the channel one day. But yeah, anyway, very influential album, like spiritually and I guess I would say musically, if you would be one to disconnect the two. So that's cool. That's a good album. Yeah, I don't remember everything on it, but I know quite a few things because we had that album. We went to St. Louis to do like this kids thing. I don't know. We did. We went for 2 summers in a row. We went for like a solid week or whatever, and we put on this huge kids thing right there downtown St. Louis. But I can't even remember what it's called. But anyway, and this album was out like right around then, and
cool.
Yeah, we played the mess out of it. Yeah, so my number 4. So we're kind of doing the opposite. I can tell from last time when we did influential songs. I started from way back to like what's now.
Yeah,
and then this time I'm starting with like just 5 to 1, like what's least and most. But so my number 4, this was back in 2005. Yes, I think it's 2005. Yeah, they released it in 2005, but it's An Evening with Shane and Shane. So Shane and Shane. This was a live album they did, just Shane and Shane and their guitars and their vocals, and it was incredible. Some of the most notable songs were Yearn, and then Saved by Grace was a little bit faster one. And then there's a lot of, they wrote a lot from Psalm 13, Psalm 118, Psalm 145. This is a very iconic Shane and Shane album. If you have been following Shane and Shane for any length of time, you will know about this album. Because a lot of what they do now is basically just redo worship songs that are written by other people. They do have some original stuff mixed in, but I miss this so much because they wrote every bit of this. And I got to meet, I believe it was Shane Bernard behind Lee University. We're about to go on an EVS retreat.
Oh, really?
And Shane and Shane was coming in to play at Lee that year. And I
remember that.
I wouldn't be able to see. Yeah. So I wasn't able to see them, but they came in and I walked behind the student union the PCSU, for those of you who call it that. I walked behind the student union, and Shane Bernard was sitting there. And I'm like freaking out. I think it was Bernard or Everett. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Shane was sitting there. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, don't act like a fanboy. Just walk up, sit down, and just start talking. So I did. I sat down. And I was like, hey, man, I just want to let you know that everything you've done over the last few years has just really impacted my life. And so we just started talking, and he ended up calling my best friend on my phone and leaving him a message, just saying, because we were fans of Shane, and it was incredible, just a good experience. But that album influenced me more so to start really connecting my musicianship with vocals and leading worship, because they were just incredible at what they did. Everything, harmonies, guitar. So I started learning, some of the different songs to just get better at playing with, instead of just, strumming the whole time, which is totally fine. It really influenced me to do that, and still does to this day. I still go back to some of this and try to learn it and keep up with it. But yeah, An Evening with Shane and Shane, live, 2005. Love that. Love that album. Man. So this is the year I graduated. So this was, I was about to start college, and once I started college, that was like a black hole, especially for albums.
Yeah.
Because I just didn't listen to albums. I had to listen to specific stuff to learn to be with the groups that we were with. And so anyway.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And you're right. Now that you say black hole, I had a lot of influential music in college, but I can't say an influential album. At least not worship album. There are probably some influential jazz albums, but not for worship. Yeah. Well, cool. So are we on to my third one?
Yeah, you're on number 3.
Okay, number 3. So has to be the Potter's House Mass Choir, A Wing and a Prayer.
Okay.
Now,
I can't say that I really know this one, but
yeah, I don't know. Maybe you
might
name
a song
that I like. So,
okay,
this one has "My Life Is Available to You." So, and I'll praise you, Lord. You are my strength and my reward. I'm lost without you. Your love pulls me through. My life is available to you.
Yeah, that last part sounds familiar. I probably heard that.
You probably have, especially because you were playing some gospel.
I wouldn't be surprised if I played it a time or two and I just didn't realize. But
yeah,
I've probably heard that. That sounds familiar.
This album really impressed me. It was really influential because of the musicianship. I didn't hear it. I first heard the album around the time when it came out, and there was a group in the Bahamas. And he probably doesn't even know how influential he was on me, but he's a guy named Edison Sumner. He was the worship leader for our church at the time, and he had a gospel group outside of our church. They would just rehearse. They would rehearse at our church, and he was also the worship leader there. And they did a lot of songs on this album, and it was the first time I had heard an album like on the radio, and then I was hearing people play it just as it is live. It was the first time I can remember that experience, and almost being confused by, were they the ones that did the recording? I was very young, but I remember having that experience. And so
they played it so well.
Because they played it so well, yeah. And so that was very influential to me on my musicianship. And then I think at the time, music had a longer shelf life. So for example, nobody's really talking about the Alive album from Hillsong's I forgot Hillsong's youth band, but like nobody's singing "You Are Alive in Us, Nothing Can Take Your Place." That only came out around 2015.
It was 2014, I think.
2014.
Yeah. You'd be surprised though. That song's still pretty popular, but yeah,
I'm pretty sure we sung it last year. But you get what I'm saying. Nobody's talking about that album. To me, this album still had life, even in 2008, 2009, when I started to learn the songs for it. So I I heard this band play it 5 years earlier, and 5 years later, this album still had life. Like, we were still performing some of these songs, I think, in EVS. So, like, this album just had a really big impact on me. Music.
Okay.
And then, like, you know, theologically later when you're actually paying attention to what it says. So.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So, and you're right about that. There, a lot of music nowadays is the shelf life of the can be much quicker, but we don't know if that album is impacting a younger version of us that we may not realize. You know, somebody that was wanting to becoming a worship leader at that time, they could be talking about this, you know, 7 years from now. Like, man, remember that that Hillsong Young and Free album? Speaking of Hillsong, though, back in 2005, they brought out an album called, well, let's see. I put number 3. Oh, yeah, number 3. Okay, this is my number 3. This came out later, but wasn't quite. Okay, let's just talk about it. It was called United We Stand by Hillsong United. This had stuff like Take It All, take it all. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So nobody's talking about that necessarily. Yep. From the inside out. From the inside out of my soul cries out. Remember
There's
that?
actually a gospel version of that album, that
Yeah,
song,
I know.
that Aaron Lindsay arranged.
Yeah, Aaron Lindsay.
Aaron
I've heard
Lindsay.
a gospel version of that. I didn't realize he did that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Came to my rescue. Came to my rescue, and I wanna be where you are. Yeah.
That probably should have went on my list. I'm glad you put it down.
Anyway, tons of songs. And then the one we talked about on our last podcast near the end would be The Stand.
Okay, yeah.
Remember that one?
That was from that album too?
That was from that album.
Okay.
Yeah. That came out in 2006.
Whoa.
So this was when I'd already graduated. So this album came out and I was still between high school and college. I didn't go until later 2006. And yeah, man, this album was always on in my truck.
Yeah.
I was listening to this thing. Yeah, this album got scratched up so much. I mean, So, and we did a lot of these songs in our youth band at the time at First Baptist Douglasville in Douglasville, Georgia. But we did quite a bit of these songs.
That album had some life to it because I didn't hear that album until college. So if that came out in 2006, I didn't go to college till 2008, and I probably was hearing it later.
Some of these songs
you know?
these songs are still being done. Like The Stand, especially, is probably has the longest shelf life of any song, it seems like.
Yeah.
But other than like hymns and whatnot. But yeah, this song was insanely influential. It was a big part of my life, which, you know, made me want to do this. Not that I'm on at this level or this, you know, type of an environment where we're writing and playing in front of millions of people, but it's still, you know, it made me want to do that and made me want to continue that journey and becoming a worship leader big time. And these songs just meant so much to me because of that time, that huge transition from high school to college. So yeah, I love this album. It's again, it's United We Stand by Hillsong United, and that was back in 2006.
That's a good album.
This song was an hour and 15 minutes, by the way. 17 songs.
Oh, the album was an hour and 15 minutes. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah,
for music nowadays. Anyway, go ahead. What's your number? I guess you're on number 2 now.
Okay, well, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, you're number 4.
Yeah,
you're number 4.
Okay,
yeah.
So it's going to be "Join the Triumph" from Citizens and Saints. And it was the first time I heard. You got to understand what was going on with me at the time. It's like it has to be about 2015 when I hear the album. I think it came out in 2014. Okay. And at this time, my theology is changing. So like the type of music I was listening to was so I was searching for like new music, right? Like who do I listen to that's within the theological vein of what I'm looking for? And they were right there. And so the album had quite a number of hymns that were like modernized, and you could play it for somebody, and if they did not know it was a hymn, they would have never known, right? So that the musicianship on that side was really impactful. And then, like I said, my theology was changing. So this fit along with it. And then I don't want to say like I had like a salvation experience around that time, because I've accepted Christ from a very early age, but I would say the awareness of my salvation had changed what God had done for me. It was kind of like a renewal, and this album was right there at the right time. And so there's a song on here specifically. It's called "You Brought Me Back to Life." It's the words are, "I wandered through the darkness, wasting away. My soul was cold and hopeless, dead in the grave. But like a river of life in a dry land, like a flicker of sight to a blind man, I saw the glorious light, and it broke in. God of mercy and might, oh, you brought me back to life." And I could almost cry when I say those words, because it's the truth, right? I felt dead, and I was brought back to life. Like I saw the truth. And so, very impactful song, very impactful album. Yeah. And then the musicianship, by the way, well, I'll talk about musicianship in the next album.
Okay.
But what's yours? You're on number 4.
So my number two, yeah, I'm on number 2, because we're working our way up to like what probably hit me the most. But my number 2, let's go back to 2005, and we're going to go to an album called "Look to You" by Hillsong United. So, this album rather, was incredibly impactful on my life. We did a lot of these songs in our youth band. But these songs like "Salvation Is Here." I played this on the bass.
First time I heard a bass player playing CCM, I was like, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And then "Tell the World," "Look to You," "All I Need Is You." I mean, "All for Love." I mean, all of these songs, man, we did these. We worshiped with these. I listened to this album almost every single night working at Walgreens. I would take my break out in the parking lot, sit in my truck, and just listen to this album for as much of it as I could. It was an hour and 9 minutes, so I can pretty much get through the whole thing. "Until I See You Face to Face." I mean, incredible stuff. I know for some people, they might look at it like, "Oh man, that's old. That's whatever." But I'm telling you, this kind of stuff was what we were doing. The band that I was with, the worship band that I was with at the time. And it's just what really impacted the students. And it brought us into the present so much more than many other songs that were out during that time. It's hard to explain. Hillsong United just knew how to do it. They sang and they performed on an anointed level, and they wrote on an anointed level. Like it is just, and they still do. And it's incredible what this album means to me. But that's why it's number 2. Just a lot of time. What's your number 1, I guess, or number 5, whatever it is?
Number 5. So my number 5, giving a little explanation. If I'm having whatever I'm experiencing in life at the time, whatever music I'm going to listen to, the music that's going to impact me the most is what's going to be reflective of my experiences at the time. So if
that's true.
If I'm having a renewal in my salvation experience, right? Like realizing what God has done for me, then the songs that I'm listening to, the ones that are going to be most impactful are the ones that are going to reflect that. If I am at a Methodist church working with a lot of hymns, then those who are in the modern hymn movement, they're going to be the most impactful. And so right now I'm at First Baptist Dallas. Our church has, we have a contemporary service, but our main service is still the choir and orchestra service. And I love it. And I'm responsible for youth music. So for junior high and high school and our student choir. And I'm always trying to think, how can I make sure that these kids are prepared for the natural culture of our church, which is, orchestra and choir. Well, I still have to think about that in a modern context, right? Like our kids aren't naturally going home listening to hymns. Not all of them anyway. Many of them, they carry around a hymnal. It's weird. So the bands that are going to be most influential on me are going to be those that have the sound that I'm looking for. I'm always searching for a new sound. So King's Kaleidoscope is very influential because they have orchestrations. You should really listen to them, especially one of their latest albums. It's beautiful. Like I've never described worship music as beautiful, but it is beautiful. Yeah. And then the album that has been influential lately is the Sing Team's Sing On. So they write their music to be sung. I don't even know if they even do harmonies on their music. And you can hear it's very easy to sing. They don't put them in harsh keys. Nothing is ever too high. It's just, and it's very fun. They actually describe themselves as having the sound of the Muppets. And but they're all adults. Yeah. Anyway, their album Sing On has been really influential because they have, those typical orchestra instruments in their ensemble, but they do it in a very modern, fun way. So
that's cool, man. Yeah, and you turned me on to Sing Team. I haven't listened to a lot of them since then, but when we were actually in Seattle, you were like, "Oh man, the Sing Team's from here," or something like that, and so you let me listen to some of it when we were driving out there, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I like this." And I actually think about them a lot when I'm thinking about arrangements and different things like that, just to, I don't know, it just comes to mind what they do, and it kind of helps inspire me to think a little differently about, how I'm going to do a song. That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
All right, so my number one, probably the most influential album of my worship life, that side of me, I guess. I have some other influential instrumental albums from other artists, but I'm not going to tell you yet because this took me to a completely different place, a completely different understanding of what corporate worship, I guess, could be or is in some cases. And it got me out of what I was seeing so much of at the church that I grew up at. And it was incredible. I actually got to see, not the entire, I don't think they did the entire album, but I got to see a lot of this when they were on tour in our area at Trinity Chapel. But anyway, let me tell you what the album is. Live from Another Level by Israel and New Breed.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. Probably
this is your number one
influential album.
Really?
This is my number one. Yeah. And not that I'm listening to it like right now and going, but because I still do. I still go back to it. But back then when this came out, I was, so close to, I had one more year to graduate high school. I knew I was going to go to college for worship and music and stuff like that. And this is all I was listening to for the most part, pretty much 2004, 2005, other than some of the other stuff I told you about. This was it. Anytime you got in my car, I could sing almost every riff, not just the words, but I'm talking about like every riff, the guitarist or the bass player. This was back when Terrence Palmer was the bass player.
Yeah, I remember the whole entire band name, right? Terrence Palmer on bass. Who was on drums?
Wasn't it Big Mike on drums? Mike Clemens?
Mike Clemens.
Wasn't that his last name? And Aaron Lindsay was on there too, right?
Yeah. Man, I feel bad. I knew everybody on that album.
I didn't really pay attention to the musicians as much as Terrence, because I was a bass player as well. But
yeah,
but it just, I don't know what it was about it, man. It just, every single song spoke to me in some way. It definitely was the musicianship as well. I just did not, I guess at the time I just didn't realize you could do worship music, corporate worship, like this. And it opened me up to a whole brand new world of music, So it just, I don't know. It just set the tone, I guess, for the entire process of me becoming a worship leader. Even though, I am I do, a lot of times lead from an acoustic guitar, and I don't do gospel all the time like it may seem, with us talking about the gospel choir we both were a part of at separate times in college. But I do a lot of CCM at our church, but this still set that tone for me. But anyway, I'm looking through the album right now on my computer and just looking at all these songs like, oh my gosh, I can't even name a song that is more notable than the other. I actually led the melody. Wait, which one was it? Anyway, it's the one where he sings in Spanish. I actually led it in Spanish.
Oh, that's
back
cool.
Then.
I find it interesting that some of the songs you've chosen, like a lot of your songs, you've chosen a couple of stuff with musicality, but that wasn't necessarily always the case. And then there's a definitely large variety in sound that you've chosen. You're talking Israel and Hillsong in the same podcast, right? Like, totally different worlds, totally different musical styles.
Especially at that time.
Especially
back in 2004 and 5,
yeah.
They were completely apart. Yeah. They've done some stuff together, I think, and
they do sound more. They probably would sound more similar now, but you're right. You also mentioned Shane and Shane. Shane and Shane really does have, I would say, their own. It is CCM, but it is a very distinct Shane and Shane sound.
Their music, man, their harmonies. It's.
I don't want to come across as like a guy that listens to Shane and Shane all the time. I know I don't know their music as well as I
used to.
Probably should
all the time. I mean, they started doing all these worship projects with all the current worship songs, and I just kind of stopped listening to them. But because I'm like, it's a great worship song that you are doing, and that's really cool. But I want to hear you write, because they were incredible, man. They still are.
You also talk a lot about the worship experience of the album, and that is very different in how I think I approached it. I would probably even say, it really did inspire you to be a worship leader, people that help other people reflect and respond to the glory of God. My journey has been a musical one first, morphing into a worship one, which is why I think even the albums that have had an impact on my life, a lot of times it's a lot about the musicality. The theology needs to be there, but the musicality also has to be extremely important. Not saying the same for you, but I just noticed a lot of it has to do with the worship side of things, not just the musicality. So thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And then I guess an honorable mention came out not too long after that was, of course, Live in South Africa, Israel New Breed. I ate that album up. But this was definitely first and foremost as far as the Israel stuff, and getting to see most of this live at Trinity Chapel in Marietta, Georgia, or wherever it was.
That's cool, man.
Or Powder Spring, whatever. But anyway, it was incredible. It just, it set that tone, like I said, for many years after that. Even still, I think about a lot of this. And then as far as a musician, another one of my honorable mentions was not a worship album. And some would say, well, I guess you really could say that it might even be based on another religion, but was Alive in America by Victor Wooten. I ate that up. I'm telling you, I try to learn to play every single thing he ever did on that album.
You're on your album.
So that was only
albums.
Music.
Yeah, gotcha.
That was just influential in general.
Yeah.
Not in a religion aspect.
Yeah, you threw me for a loop.
I think he's Buddhist, but yeah. But anyway, put all that aside. Right now, like I said, I'll go back to number 5. Maverick City is really where I'm sitting a lot. I do listen to a lot of Elevation and a lot of other mainstream stuff that people are listening to and worshiping with, and I'm there. I mean, but when I just want to go in a room and just worship, and if I do end up playing music, it's usually going to be Maverick City right now. So, but yeah, man. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. I have a meeting I got to get to. Davin has to get to a lot of stuff today too. It's Tuesday morning when we're recording this, but man, we are so glad that you decided to watch this with us or listen to this with us. We love music, we love God, we love people, and we love putting it all together. And so yeah, put in the comments below if you're on YouTube what some of your most influential albums have been over the years. What maybe an album that took you from not even thinking about becoming a worship leader, that because of that, listening to that, worshiping with that, now you are. Put that stuff below. We want to see that kind of stuff and just talk to you about that in the comments. And anyway, thank you so much for watching. And remember, great worship leaders are always learning. Thank you so much, guys. Dude, another podcast in the books. That's right.
Another one in the books.